is for informational and educational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. Nothing contained here constitutes a solicitation, recommendation, endorsement, or offer to buy or sell any securities or other financial instruments whatsoever by Draper Goren Blockchain, aka DGB, the presenter, or other associated parties for the content being provided. Please do your own due diligence and seek proper counsel.
Boom. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. All right. I was distracted. The intro is long, but it's also too short for me to get distracted with other things. So like old intro used to be able to like retweet stuff and goof around and have some fun. And this time I was worried that I would miss things. So I was double checking that it's on the stream and all that stuff. And it was what it was. But that was Out of Trust, a pretty rad band from Oxnard, California. Nardcore. Nardcore. Oh man, we could just spend this whole time and I could talk to you guys about Oxnard Hardcore, it's aka Nardcore, aka the land of no toilets, and all sorts of other interesting things to me that might bore the crap out of you guys, but could be pretty fun.
I thought it was a cool intro.
Oh, it was a fucking awesome intro because of that song. Those guys actually in that band are some local Nardcore OGs, buddies of mine from many years back, and it's a cool band, so everyone should check them out. But we're stoked today because we got Jordan from Zoop on, and we're investors in Zoop, and I love Zoop. I got excited right off the bat. Oh man, I was gonna potentially prepare with some pictures and things to show our origin story. I probably still could, using like,
tell you what
Google. Yeah.
If you want, I'll talk a little bit and you could look for some photos.
Well, I got Google Photos right up, so it'll be
Sounds
fast,
great. Why doesn't Jordan tell us a little bit more about Zoop?
Yeah. So before we jump in, I want to tell us about Zoop, and then I want to tell people about how I got to meet Jordan and why we were so stoked to work with Jordan right off the bat. And but tell us about Zoop first, then we'll jump back and forth. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. So I should probably point out, like, I guess Alon and I have known each other for about 8 years or so, and that's that. I'll leave that to Alon. But we've connected on so many things. I mean, we're both old punk rockers, so that kind of music is right up my alley. I think he and I connected on a mutual love for Bad Religion. So I don't know if anybody who's watching or listening to this is also.
So there's one of our very, very regular community members. His name is Zuda. That's what he goes by. Good friend of ours.
What's up, Zuda?
Zuda is a badass. He's a super smart engineer and just good dude. His long running joke that I clung to that I thought was hilarious was at some point he said Alon's default skin is Bad Religion, because I was wearing so many Bad Religion shirts. Like it was like 9 out of 10 times you would watch the stream, I'd be wearing a Bad Religion shirt. Now I got DGB shirts made, so now that's my my new default. But my default skin is Bad Religion, and you know this from I would bet that about 90% of the times we've hung out in person and online, I've been wearing a Bad Religion shirt.
Yeah. Hey man, if I wasn't a starving startup founder, I'd have a ton more Bad Religion swag as well, man.
I'm not sure. Actually, that is not true. I've received them from my family as gifts on holidays, like for my kids. But 90% of what my Bad Religion clothes I wear is like 20 years old.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. I had my daughter, I let her wear like one of my Green Day shirts from like 94, 95, something like that. That's so cool. That's even 30 years old. We are old punk rockers. But yeah, enough about that. Let's talk about Zoop. Zoop, we are a full service crowdfunding platform for creators. So as much as I hate to say it, think Kickstarter, except we're the full suite of services on top of that. We're our own platform, but we help creators of all kinds. So we sort of have a focus on the Comic-Con audience, if you will. So creators who are creating comic book and graphic novel projects, toys, gaming type things. We've done a puzzle, we've done traditional publishing. So anything that sort of falls under that, we are a support system for these creators to get their projects crowdfunded, to make the money that they're looking for. You know, only 40% of crowdfunding projects actually get funded on other platforms. Typically because a lot of people don't necessarily, yeah, I know. It's like not a great stat. But I think that part of the reason is these are people who don't necessarily understand how to crowdfund. They think, hey, if I put up a project, I'll make money, but it's not always like that. So with us, we have a built-in layer of support. We handle campaign management. We handle in-house marketing. We handle printing and manufacturing of the actual product. And the big one that is a barrier to entry for a lot of people to enter into the world of crowdfunding is fulfillment. Because if you have to sell, you know, hundreds of products essentially, and then package them all up, ship them all out, that's really, you know, overwhelming for a lot of people. Having to find the vendors to actually create your product is also another time consuming, you know, if you're a creative type of person, these are just some of the tasks that you don't necessarily want to do. So we take that on for these creators, and I mean, we're having a blast doing it. You know, I'm a lifelong comic book fan, and the majority of our projects so far have been in that category. So comics and graphic novels, and you know, the fact that we've gotten to work with some of the biggest names in the industry has been awesome.
Yeah, I've got some things I'm going to share in a second, but to go along the, you know, here, can I upload a bunch at once? That would be cool. All right.
Oh, do you have the old school photos of us?
Okay.
Where I'm not
I've got some old school photos and stuff I'm going to share, but it's kind of sad. Actually, really quickly before I was going to go into something specific, but these are from February 18th, 2016. So obviously we met before this because you're presenting at a demo day on that day. So we met probably in the weeks or maybe a couple months before this.
Sure.
But before I dive into it, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is we talk about this a lot, and why Rankin and I love the metaverse and some of these crazy things we like to talk about. But the way in which the model is broken, right? In a high level, not just talking about you know, raising money and crowdfunding for artists, but the artist model is broken. It's practically impossible nowadays for an artist to try and make a living as an artist. It used to be a profession, right? And everyone talks about the record labels taking advantage of bands and things like that. Everybody talks about, you know, in the art world, right? You talk about like galleries and things taking advantage and whatever. But imagine being a young comic book artist, right? Who could now, or graphic novelist or anything, who could now make anything by themselves, because we have the devices, we can do everything. We can do from, you know, start to finish yourself. But then you have to compete with Disney. You have to compete with Marvel. You have to compete with all these groups. I mean, they're the same company, but which is maybe part of the problem. But the thing that's crazy is you by yourself can create a YouTube channel, can get a following online, TikTok, wherever it is, Instagram, and get a following that has more people watching it than watch like the average Netflix show, right? But the average Netflix show got paid to put that on Netflix, gets paid per stream. But, you know, you can argue that they don't get paid enough and all of these things. But the fact that us three right now have, there's about 70 people watching live, and that number is slowly creeping up as we go. So hi, everyone. And across my LinkedIn and across YouTube and across other places, we're gonna get into the thousands of people that watch this, right? We could do some cool shit together, but we couldn't earn a living pre something like Zoop existing for everyone. It's way harder, right? Because we might be really good at this thing, but we might not be good at distribution or printing or everything.
Yeah. So what we do, we kind of lower that barrier to entry, right? We fill in the gaps. So even if you are a creator, and you're like, you know what, I'm a writer, or I'm an artist, and I know how to market myself, I know how to get myself out there, but you don't have a printer for your books, or you don't know how to, figure out shipping and packaging and all of that. Cool. We fill in those gaps for people. We act as an extension of their team. We handle a lot of the functionality that a publisher would handle. But the cool thing about what we do is, I'm going to use this word, we democratize the world of creation, if you will. So if you have an idea for a story, you don't necessarily have to pitch it to a publisher. You don't have to wait for approvals. Now you have the technology and the platforms and the avenues to make your own thing. And there's that kind of thing, like Alon was saying, I'll bounce off of it. This isn't exactly what you were saying, but in addition to that, if you're an individual, what is it like? You need 100 or 1,000 people to buy into what you're doing, and you can make a living. Like this is sort of in unprecedented times. This isn't something that was able to be done 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You can take your own destiny into your own hands, and we want to be there to help. In order to fill in those gaps.
There's a difference, right? So people who know me and know my background and stuff like that know that I worked at MySpace back in the day, and I actually wrote an article back then.
I always love that about you, by the way. That's like the funniest thing.
Well,
I used to work at MySpace.
It's the funniest thing if you're the age where you knew that what was going on at the time. It was crazy, right? Like now we take a lot of what was happening for granted, but in that moment, I remember doing writing a blog post or something, and I don't even know if we called it. That was when blogs were first brand new, a blog, right? But I wrote a post, and it was called "The Desperation's Gone," which is a nod to a NoFX song, by the way. But
I knew it.
But the idea, the whole point of the article was was that when we started with communities, and it was related to crowdfunding. This is pre me launching a crowdfunding platform and getting obsessed with this idea. But I had this idea because I was going, hey, we can go online right now. And back just a few years before this, a year or two before this, right? Maybe 5 years earlier, I was in high school. And before I got my driver's license, or any of my friends did, we sat on the quad of the school, and our community was the 9 misfit kids who liked punk rock, and maybe one of the bands would be allowed to play some songs on the quad of the school during lunchtime. Like they do that a couple times a year, and you might find a few of your other friends, and maybe there's 15, 20 of us goofy art kids at school, or band nerds, or whatever community we were a part of. And everyone has their version of their own community, right? Some people a little bigger, some people a little smaller, but your whole community was your high school, basically. Then you get your driver's license, and maybe there's 4 or 5 high schools around. You might meet some of the other people through friends or whatever. And if it was a punk rocker like me, at a punk rock show. And then that group of 20 people could be maybe 200 people, right? And maybe you got a little older, your parents will let you drive further. We could drive up to San Francisco. We could find the people who graduated high school are still into it, right? And all of a sudden it gets a little bigger each time, right? And then you might go to a new city. You might try to find where the punk rock thing is, and you might find their center of gravity or whatever for that city, right? That's, we lost
Rankin.
Internet connection thing, maybe. Oh, he's back. So it grows, but there's centers of gravity. We joked about Nardcore. Why does Nardcore exist, right? Because there was a group of punk rockers in Oxnard, and they started 3 or 4 legendary punk bands for that time that people knew about, and people in Europe. I saw a Dr. No shirt in Israel, and I was like, holy shit, that was crazy, right? It blew my mind because it's a Nardcore band. So, but that's how it happened. Then all of a sudden, social media existed, and you could have thousands of fans in any corner of the world, and your tiny little market, your tiny little niche became bigger, right? Even if you're still tiny compared to, punk rock, compared to football, right? Still tiny. But in comparison to punk rock kid in Thousand Oaks, California, to punk rock kid across the whole world, all of a sudden you found your people. And that's when I realized, when you tie that to, I can get people, I can go to my friend's house, and for the pizza that I buy for him, he will record my band. I need no money anymore. It's just about my network and maybe a few dollars for a pizza, right? And you could print 1,000 CDs for $1,000 back then. And you needed CDs still, even though we were starting to distribute online. And I realized that if I wanted to play a show in the Philippines, which we never did, but we wanted to, because we found out we had 1,000 fans on MySpace in the Philippines. Like,
Wow.
it blew our fucking minds, right? This is crazy. This is like really special. And so you find your people. And if Jordan loves a comic book artist that's anywhere in the world, that artist can know about it and can go, wait, maybe I should go to the local Comic Con that's in his neck of the woods. Remember when Comic Cons were in like high school gyms?
I do. They weren't called Comic Cons. They were just
just comic book conventions, or I'm going to the show, comic book show.
I'm going to. It was just a show. I do like. I went to my like middle school, and it was just basically high schoolers and college kids with like boxes of comics. It wasn't what it is today, clearly, but yeah, they were just comic book shows, not necessarily even conventions. But to your point about MySpace, Alon, I think one other thing that we kind of forget about is like MySpace. My MySpace page was like my first website.
Yeah.
I didn't have a website before that. That was my first, and at that time I was still a musician. I was a professional musician, like before the whole startup life, but that was my way to promote myself. That was my way to get jobs. That I showed my resume. I showed videos and tracks that like I played on, and that was a way for people to kind of like, I was able to send, like myspace.com/Jordan Plosky, go check it out over there. That's where you could see my stuff. And that was a big deal at the time. Like that was my website. That was how it helped me generate more business for myself as a freelance musician, which funny enough, and is a whole other story, but like realizing that like when you're a freelancer like that, even in any sort of creative field, there's so many parallels to being a freelance independent contractor as a musician as it is for being a comic book creator as well. You're always hustling like from gig to gig and negotiating, and
that's
an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. I didn't realize it at the time until it transitioned over into my first startup.
And I want to give people a little inspiration too with what Jordan just said, because this is like the most important thing in the whole freaking world, in my opinion. And it goes to why I loved crowdfunding back in the day. And then I want to say something about Zoop, and then jump into showing some how I met Jordan, reasons why I think he's perfect for Zoop too. And then we'll keep shooting the shit, because that's kind of the whole point of this is we used to I used to do a version of this, and we just called it eavesdropping on Alon or something like that. And I would just call people like this, and I would just hang out with them. And then that would be the thing, because this isn't that different from this isn't very different from our private conversations, to be honest. But what I wanted to say about the inspirational part of all of this, and the part where you're saying like being an entrepreneur, for being with bands, from artists, everyone knows this in their own communities, that it's not always like the best band in the world isn't always the band that's the most popular band in the world, or you'd go and meet a local band and you go, holy shit, this is like one of the best bands I've ever seen in my life. Or you see a band that's pretty popular and you're like scratching your head, like, these aren't that good, right? Like what's so special about this? And what you learned is that with every successful local band, and then you can take this all the way up to fucking Taylor Swift right now, with every local band that had some kind of a following, or that would play a lot of shows and grow their audience and stuff like that, there'd be at least one member of the band, at least one, who was a hustler. And in some bands, it would be a few, and that would help them, because there has to be somebody who calls up the venues to try to get the show, who calls up the other bands or shows up to their shows going, hey, can we play with you? Hey, or posts things on MySpace, or goes, sits at their cubicle
100%.
sits at their cubicle pretending to work, making the flyers, and then using the MySpace printer to print 1,000 copies of it to then put around town the next day, right? Everyone.
Who could that be, Alon?
Who could have that been,
the
right?
audience, or
Oh,
work in the
dude,
audience, like
the day I realized I could print it in color on 11 by 17 sheets of paper was the greatest moment for our local startup scene. I was printing flyers for everyone on Fox's dime. That was pretty epic.
That's fun.
But that's the most important thing you learn, right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who do crowdfunding too, and this is important to people who use Zoop, not just our community. We want to discuss this now. Is there's this idea of DIY or die, right? Like there's a song I love called DIY or Die, right? But it's about doing it yourself, right? We are in the greatest time in history, in my opinion, for DIYing your stuff. But doing it yourself doesn't necessarily mean you don't bring your friends along with you to help, like amplify what you do, right? Totally. Because anyone who does it themselves, they do it themselves. But then, I DIY'd, made a tour for my band, but I still needed
it's about your network.
Promote it. People to help me to promote. You needed a venue to do it in, right? Like these are things that exist, and you need to build your network. You need to hustle. You need to sell. It's all sales, even when it's not sales, right? And what I wanted to just say is think about that, because showing up isn't quite enough. Showing up is like 90%, but you have to
outwork. You have to outwork everybody else. And just to piggyback off of what you're saying, Alon. So I went from being in bands, in like high school and college, and like trying to make it, but I was never the point person in those bands, but then I got my first gig as sort of like a freelance musician. So now all of a sudden I'm out there on my own, and I developed a really nice resume. I never made it to that level where it became like a lifelong career, but I played for people like Everclear, from Miley Cyrus, Nickelodeon artist Big Time Rush. So like I had a really good like long list of clients, artists on my resume, and I would get other musicians asking me like, "Hey, how did you do that? How did you do that?" And my answer to them translates to my answer to literally anybody trying to do something in a creative field. The thing is, to Alon's earlier point, I wasn't the best drummer. I own that. I did the job. I could play every song I needed to play.
I bet you were pretty great.
Well, look, I'm no, like, I would.
Do you still have a drum? You still got your drum set up at home?
It's not set up. It's kind of stacked up in the garage, unfortunately.
Oh, dang.
But yeah, but the thing is, my strength came from networking, from going out on the Sunset Strip every single night and showing my face, so that when there was another artist heading for tour or heading into the studio and they were looking for musicians, I was the last person that they saw. And that was my strength. Now, don't get me wrong. I could do the job. I could play the music, but my strength was maintaining those relationships, getting out there and networking, showing face, having people want to refer me, and just being the last person that they saw, so that when they do think, "Oh, we need a drummer. Oh, I just saw Jordan the other night. Let's give him a call." And that's how I would bounce from gig to gig to gig. And again, it's the same thing in any creative field. If you're a stand-up comedian, it's the same thing. If you are a comic creator, it's the same thing. If you're another musician, an actor, whatever it is, yes, you have to be good at what you're doing. But if you don't get out of your basement, no one will ever know. So if there's anything to take to heart, that's the advice I try to give everybody in any sort of creative field, is you have to get out there. You have to network. To Alon's point, DIY doesn't mean that you're doing every aspect of it yourself. It is you, and what David said, it's your network as well. So yeah,
and it's a little bit about staying independent if you want to stay independent, but it doesn't mean you have to be the one shipping the products or figuring out how to silk screen your t-shirts or the different things. Although that's super fun, and you could, but it's there's always the knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not so good at, and focusing on owning what you're great at and letting other people take the other parts, right? So one thing I wanted to say that we didn't really say right off the bat, but it's in the description of this. It should be everywhere. If not, afterwards we'll make sure we add it. But Zoop right now is doing their own crowdfunding campaign for Zoop, and what's cool about it is that anybody who is an accredited investor or not is allowed to participate in it. And that's on Republic, which is, so it's Zoop, it's republic.com/Zoop. But the link is in the chat. Now I want to go back to what you were saying before about being a guy who collected comic books and being into comic books and being that guy. And we talked about a lot of stuff right now. When I first met you, you were pitching a company called Comic Blitz, and you actually did a crowdfunding campaign for Comic Blitz.
We did
later, but I was organizing a thing called 805 Startups. It still exists. My friend Gary runs it. It's pretty awesome, especially if you're in Southern California. You could go to 805startups.com. He does like these lunches very regularly and online events and stuff like that. But we did a pitch session, a private one just for investors in like an office. And then we did a big community one so that everyone in the community can see these companies pitch. And here is Jordan pitching Comic Blitz. I kept this further one just because you see Comic Blitz. And why this is cool to me in this moment in time is that Jordan, this isn't his first company, and his previous company was trying to make the comic book experience better, right? It was like kind of like the Netflix for comic books, right? And then it was acquired and things. And you did get an exit. You sold that company. You moved on and did some cool stuff. But I thought that was cool because it to me, again, you saw the disclaimer at the beginning, not investment advice, whatever. The way we invest in DGB is 99% the people, right? So when Jordan reached out to me saying he's doing Zoop now and he's getting ready to figure out what's next and raise money and do the things they want to do, I instantly wanted to be a part of it. One, I did invest in Comic Blitz on the crowdfunding platform, a couple $100 or something, which is pretty cool. And the best way I have to gauge anybody at this crazy early stage is the person, their personality, the way they run their business, the way he ran his previous business, and then move forward. So I loved the fact that he started, again, I'm going to show, here's another picture of him explaining the difference between Comic Blitz and some of these other products. Oh, really quickly too, I put this picture in here also because it looks like he's alone on this stage. Like, you can't tell if anybody's there. We had a few hundred people there. It was a pretty cool event. It was in the Civic Arts Plaza in Thousand Oaks. So, which is pretty big. Here's Jordan when he was pitching to the private investors earlier in the day. Here's another close up when he was on the main stage, I think. And then this one is cool because I was, what's funny is that my phone, I'm assuming that's my phone in my hand. It looks like a newer phone. It doesn't look like this is from 2016, but maybe we're time travelers. But you can tell it's 2016 because I'm wearing a shirt with buttons and it's tucked in, which is, that's not.
And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I have no gray hair in that picture.
That's right. If you see me in person, you can tell that my hair on the top of my head is also much thinner than it is in that one. I just, fluff it up. I'm a few years away from it being really obvious, and then I'll have to do something about it. But no, it's so cool to me because one, you were pitching a company that was 2016. That was February 2016, so beginning. So you probably started that company in 2015 or so.
We started doing all the market research and putting it together like January 1st, 2014. That was kind of like,
oh, okay, dang.
yeah,
So you were already a couple years in at that point. A year or two later, you sold it, or you kind of like another company
yeah,
brought it in.
yeah. 2018, we got acquired. So, just to sort of reiterate, we were essentially, like Alon said, Netflix for digital comic books, subscription-based digital comics on your phone, your tablet, even your computer. You pay one low fee and have access to all this streaming content, which was digital comics, as opposed to what everybody knows is streaming today is just video content. But that
Yeah.
being said, a video distribution company acquired us to sort of loop in the digital comics into their streaming offering. So that was 2018. I went to work with them for the transition period of getting Comic Blitz like integrated into their back end and technology, and then moved on, really. Can I tell you something? I don't know if this is going to appeal to this audience, but I don't know if I told you this before, Alon, but one of the cool things that I had thought about, and again, this is 2015, 2016. I'm not a huge scholar, I would say, of blockchain and crypto and NFTs. But one of the problems I always found with digital comic books was that there was no collectability. There was no trading. And I had seen something that Topps had the Star Wars trading card app. And I was hanging out with I got a coffee with a buddy of mine, and he took out his app. He's showing me the Star Wars trading card app. And he's explaining to me that like people are trading these cards for hundreds of dollars. Like, and at this time, 2015, 2016, he's like, yeah, you kind of put something up on eBay and then someone buys that and then you could transfer it in a marketplace. It was like all very convoluted, but it got me thinking. And I'm like, well, wait a sec. That's what's missing in digital comics. What if we could trade through the Comic Blitz platform? What if we had, variant covers is a big thing, right? So you could
dude,
buy
I got my
silver.
I've got so many like silver foil edition, Silver Surfer comics at my parents' house still.
But what if you could do that digitally, because it hadn't been done before? It still hasn't. It's
I want to take it
with like.
I have an idea to take it to a whole new level. I want there to be a certain percentage chance when we make a trade that the corners of my digital comic book get dinged or get torn. Like I want to have a kind that's degradable, right? So just for the fun, of it,
so that the value lowers.
Maybe if it's so, it makes it so rare that, because I think that if each time you trade it, like it goes from like a minuscule chance, like a 0.001% to each time you trade it, it becomes more and more possible, because then it's like it keeps that idea of like I've kept it in the what's it called, the mylar bag with the backing thing that I keep you keep
bag and board.
You bag and board every one of my comics at my parents' house, right? And I still have them there, and I kept it in like the best way I could. And but
one of the benefits of digital is not having to worry about that.
I know, but I want both types, right? I want people to I like the idea
he wants to see the wear of the comic book as if somebody read it.
Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing is, I want all of the physical parts to exist also, if the creator wants to, right? And maybe it's stupid. It is stupid. But like, for example,
it is stupid.
Well, for example, a digital thing can be like your ticket stub to a concert, right? There's ones that have been redeemed. There's ones that haven't been redeemed. I want to be able to tell, right? So that can be one way it degrades. It could be torn in half. It could be stamped. It could be anything. It could be So here's a thing that's really interesting, and I wanted to say at the beginning just to give them some love. We're going to have them on the show soon, but Dogami, or as they say because they're French, Dogami, launched an app recently, and they are a cool NFT gaming project that we're investors in, full disclosure. But I own some Dogami dogs. They're like, they're literally like, it's like a game character, right? You can play the game without owning any. And I did that with my kids, but I have some dogs from when I bought these NFTs, and they're NFTs of dogs, but they're dynamic in that I have them on the app. And the more my actual NFT I play, I'm waiting for it to load, but I play as my character, right? And I train my character. He gets better. Like Sears, one of my dogs, is a black lab, right? And I train him and I play these games. I race with him and I trade and I make him better and I play a fun game, right? Like a cool type game. But my actual NFT gets is digital, and it gets better and better over time. Imagine if you had your Nintendo, right? We had N64. We were the right age for that, right? Imagine if you had upgraded your like 007 GoldenEye character, right, to be better and better than mine. And if you wanted to, we could trade, and you could give me your character because you earned the thing. Like
better and better works, but going the other way.
Hear me out, guys. Hear me out.
But
here's how you do this.
Yeah.
Hold on. The way this works is you have the comic book, right? The digital version of the comic book. Every time the comic book transfers from one wallet to a different wallet, it degrades slightly on the cover.
That's what. No, I don't want it to degrade, because what if Jordan and I are very careful, and Jordan?
You don't transfer it. You don't transfer it. If it stays in the wallet, it stays perfect. No, every time it transfers to a new person,
it doesn't. No, every time
or something.
No, it needs to
be.
It's
a terrible discussion.
It needs to be. It needs to be a. There's a chance, a likelihood. So it could be a likelihood. How about this? A likelihood that what if you wanted to do, it's the same mechanism, right? But what if Jordan wants
the
to
ones that
create
haven't transferred wallets will be worth more.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I gotta tune out from this. This is hurting my head.
We're gonna change. I'm changing. No, wait. I'm changing the subject. I'm changing the subject. But you could do the opposite, right? What if Jordan creates a really cool character, and we're talking about variants and things like that, and comic books that are digital? I know that I've contributed to a Zoop campaign where I received a digital comic. It was just a PDF, right? But what if I wanted to make a version of that as an artist that I wanted people to share, right? That I wanted people to be able to spread the word and share with other people. And maybe each time I share it, there is a very tiny chance that the person and me get a super limited edition variant something. And now I can reward people for sharing in a way that wasn't possible before. Not because, hey, I could reward people for sharing and send them the special PDF, but then you can copy that and send it to a bazillion people. But what if I can know that because of my participation, I have a sweatshirt in my closet. It's like falling apart now, but I got it in 2001 it had to be before 1999 or so, because I was on the Bad Religion street team. I got bricks of stickers to throw around town, right? But they gave me a sweatshirt that only I and probably another 100 people have. It's the only gray sweatshirt I have. I would never buy a light color sweatshirt, right? You know, it's not my style, but it's gray. And with the orange, this is the Process of Belief on it, because that's the album that had just come out, which was an epic album. It was like the return of Bad Religion to Epitaph. Of course, I'm nerding out, right? I'm telling you why this is special to me, but there's versions of that for everyone. And I'm the only one that has that. It's not possible in the digital world. If they sent me a song
PDF,
or a PDF, it's not special. But on the blockchain, there's ways of making it special. Even if people copy it, right? Yeah, you can have the song, but Alon has the cryptographically proven with the certificate of authenticity, the master, right? It's like getting a test pressing for a record. I have some of those at my parents' house because it was really it was a cool thing for me to own, right? This is a digital version of that. So I think this world will go in that direction eventually, because you're already doing digital distribution, things like that. But we're in the phase, right? In music, we're in the phase where bands make a lot of their money by selling the collectibles, by selling the t-shirts, by selling special limited edition vinyl versions and stuff like that. Maybe the vinyl version has a track that's not on the digital version. It'll get online eventually and we'll all listen to it. But I want that vinyl. I want the red vinyl or the colored vinyl, the whatever.
You know, the comics audience and the gaming audience and the toy audience, and this is like who we're servicing, they're all into collectability, into limited edition exclusive type things. There's just a little bit of a late adoption of blockchain and crypto and NFTs and Web3 in these industries, you know, but at the same time, if there are practical applications such as that, then I could see that working, because yes, we do, like you said, we do distribute digital content, plenty of the
Yeah.
times, you know, like, I mean, if we're running a campaign for a comic or even, you know, traditional publishing, a book, you know, a novel or something like that, yes, there's a digital component so people can just have access to it as opposed to having to have, you know, more books on their bookshelf or taking up space or whatever. They're not
It's
into the collectability, but they just want the story. They want to read something. You know, digital works fantastic for that. But
Well,
if you could start offering individual, you know, exclusive items digitally in a way that is like socially acceptable to everybody.
so here's the thing. Yeah, there was an educational problem for some games and industries when it came to blockchain because there's just so much misinformation. But there were also some good reasons why our industry, the blockchain industry, needed to get poked and prodded because there's some things that can be better over time, right?
Yeah.
All those things are going to shuffle out. It's exactly like the beginning days of the internet, right? There was a lot of hype around, ooh, there needs to be pets.com and this.com and that.com, whatever. It blew up, right? And then all of a sudden, cut to today, you know, Amazon exists and everything else.
When
right?
Brian Gumbel's like, "What's the internet?" You know,
Dude,
there's a
such
really important aspect, guys.
Yeah.
There's a really important aspect. We've all been there with Napster and MP3s. We've been there with PDF versions of comic books, and all this stuff can circulate. The nice thing about the blockchain is we can authenticate and validate that you are the actual owner of that digital asset, and then potentially lock people out from viewing something or using something if they're not the owner. And I think that's where some of that needs to be coming.
The models shift, right? That's a good example. Napster was there at a time where if Apple and Spotify had launched the products they have today back then, we would have all been like we would have just been like, screw that. That's the stupidest thing in the world. Pay for a single song or pay for a subscription to listen to the music I already own. Like, that's the stupidest thing in the world, right? So, but Napster and those things existed because of, you know, the fact that it was so much easier all of a sudden to do it. Nobody was using it because they were like, hey, Jordan doesn't deserve to get paid as the drummer for that band, and I don't want to do that. It came out of the world where we live on our computers now. We're able to put hundreds of songs on a CD in MP3 form, even if the quality back then got destroyed. You know, all these things, all these things. Our everyday lives, especially younger people, right? We're completely changing, like our actual way we interacted and our just user experience of life and listening to music changed. And those things evolved faster than the music industry was able to understand, right? Because they were good at one thing and not this. And once we changed our behaviors, it made it really easy for Apple to go, okay, here's the best user experience for that. And by the way, the first iPods and stuff like that to listen to music, everyone filled them with illegal music. Nobody took their CDs. I mean, there's very few times where I had to take like a CD because it was like, again, this was harder than illegally downloading it, but like there'd be a CD of a certain band that I couldn't find the songs on online, so I made them into MP3s and then I put them onto the device.
Yeah. Or we'd own the CD and still have the MP3 because it was just easier.
Oh, a million times easier. But all of a sudden, we got to that point, and then it's our attention span also got down to, instead of an album, a song, and that's a part of it. MySpace broke our brains, and now it goes, oh, I'll pay 99 cents and I can feel good that Jordan's getting paid for that song, but it's also I only pay 99 cents instead of $20 for the CD. So okay, I'll buy that song.
I got to tell you, I had a different, a little bit different experience with like digital music and digital comic books, because for a large part of that sort of revolution, I guess you would call it, you know, I was a touring musician myself, and like I'd go on tour, I'd live on a tour bus, I'd have a backpack and a suitcase, and the other thing I had was my big case of 200 CDs.
Yeah.
And then when iPods came out, it was like, oh my God, instead of carrying this, you know, 10-pound, you know, like 12-inch by 12-inch case of CDs, all of a sudden all of the music I wanted was on this small device. Yeah, exactly. That bigger.
Way
That's
bigger,
only
dude.
like
way bigger.
double.
Well,
mine
This is
was
a small
double
one.
the size.
But
Yeah,
Jordan,
that's the small one.
when you went to MP3s, did you have a Discman that could play MP3s? Because then you could put hundreds of songs on one disc. So then I went from the giant one to the slightly smaller one.
I didn't even know that existed. That must have been like some technology that just passed over super fast.
People who were resisting getting iPods, basically, because
Sure.
I wasn't an Apple person yet.
But no, the iPod revolutionized being able to travel, with music, which was a big thing to me because I was traveling constantly. And then the same thing happened later, like 5 years later, with comics, as opposed to like traveling with like, here, look, this is what's right next to me. I know it's blurry, but this is a stack of comic books right here. So, I used to travel and bring comics with me or graphic novels like to read. And then when digital came out, it was like, oh, all I need is my iPad. That takes up the space of like one graphic novel as opposed to a stack of graphic novels. I mean, it was revolutionary is definitely the word when it comes to digital for me in these markets, And then it's the same thing with video streaming too, dude. Everybody watches everything now on like a 4-inch screen. That's my boy. Everybody watches everything now on like a 4-inch screen. You have all of the world's information at your fingertips, and that includes entertainment of all forms too. It's crazy.
And I think that's where we're in this weird, awkward phase with collectibles and blockchain and things like that, because the word blockchain doesn't need to even be a part of the equation, right? So here's this is something I've showed before in other things. So it's actually still here, is I put this out there because this was a slide, and I don't know if we still use it as a slide in our deck for when we're raising money. And it says, no one starts an internet company anymore. Right. And the reason this slides exists is because then I follow it up with everything is an internet company now. Because the reason I say that is when I was starting my first company soon after those MySpace days, I'd have to explain to people that I'm starting a tech company. I'm starting an internet company, right? There isn't such thing as a freaking hot dog stand that isn't connected to the internet anymore, because even if they don't do it, you can go onto, you go onto whatever app you want, Uber Eats, and you can get that hot dog, right? Like on your phone at your device, right?
Or you're paying with a credit card and Stripe, is the vendor or something like that for that hot dog stand.
Everything is digital, right? So we're at this phase where you have to be really clear when you're talking to investors or people, right? Like you use the word crowdfunding, and you have to talk about the creator economy and all of these things. But the creator economy is just another way of saying the future of the way we're doing it, which is kind of going back to the beginning. It's all of those big bureaucratic organizations don't have a monopoly on our attention anymore. Right.
Correct.
And
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We are a piece of this creator economy. I think when people think creator economy, they think about people on YouTube, on TikTok, creating all this digital content. And that's true. But we're another spoke on the wheel of that creator economy. I love this saying, crumbs make crumb cake, right? So if you're a creator, you have some revenue from this source, some revenue from this source, and a lot of that stuff is digital content. What we do is potentially bring the digital and physical together. Like we help these creators, again, who might not know how to source manufacturers, how to do the printing or fulfillment or anything like that, but they know how to produce content, and we could help craft that digital content or something else into a physical offering for that user base, for their fans, and be a part of that creator economy in a way. Just another revenue stream, another way to monetize as a creator. So we're not limited to just comics, even though that's what we spent, a lot of the time talking about.
It's gonna grow, right?
Yeah. Musicians, podcasters, video producers, gaming streamers, like, all that stuff.
Zoop has already been around for a little bit. How's the success of Zoop so far?
Yeah, I mean, do I give specific numbers or?
Whatever. So what I was actually about to do, and this is related to numbers. I could do that actually. I actually let me show that, because I want to show I wanted to talk about something that's on the page actually. So I was going. We have like 5 minutes.
Go get that,
left.
but Alon, so I was going to say I got 5 minutes. So if I could give just a little like spiel about
do it.
Yeah. So we did launch in June 2021. And since then, we've done over 130 campaigns with, literally hundreds of creators.
Nice.
I guess we use the terms, we have processed over $2 million in funds coming into Zoop from transactions. So yeah, I feel that like we do have a great business model. I think, doing over $2 million in sales is like, hey man, for any startup that basically did all this on $50,000 of friends and family money, like before we talked to Alon and David, like we didn't have any investors really, it was just friends and family. So everything that we've done has been bootstrapped really up until this point. So now what we're looking to do is scale. You can see what we've done. These are the funds processed over the past 3 years. 2021 was a half a year. We were only live from June until the end of the year. So that was a good first year as well, and then we've not really all been full-time on this. So with a raise on Republic, this is going to allow us to go full-time. We have ideas on how to actually execute and go from, doing roughly 700,000 last year to 1.5 this year. In terms of the things that you get if you were to invest in us, which we would very much appreciate you at least taking a look, follow us, ask questions, and ultimately we would love your support. But we're offering safe notes, and the first $300,000 in the door get us at a 5.1 million valuation. After that first $300,000, you come in at a $6 million valuation. If you're a collector, we have a lot of physical perks at these different investment levels. So exclusive rare comics as well to kind of go up on the shelf. Depending on how high you go, will depend on how many different versions of that comic, and the higher the tier you come in at, the more rare and the lower the print run of each of those comics is. So
you're investing in the company. So to paraphrase
Correct.
what he's saying is you're investing in the company at
Yes.
the same terms that other investors are investing in. Just to be super clear, I clicked on something here and I'm logged into my account, and you saw my personal $250 I put on it. But just so you know, DGB, our fund, is an investor in Zoop. We're investing in these exact terms. We invested in this campaign too, directly. And what I wanted to show actually on here that I think is really important, and I think we can dive into nitty gritty, and you can go in and you can ask questions and stuff like that on the page itself, and
Yes.
or to Jordan directly or to me, whatever. And I could give you my opinion as to why I'm participating. And again, not investment advice. You can assume anytime you make an investment in a company that it can go to zero. So be safe and be responsible. But what's fun about this is you also get those comic books Jordan was talking about. But one thing I wanted to share, because we were talking about numbers before, I know we only got a minute, is when you go here, I'm a big fan of this guy, Michael Panesis. He's a friend of mine. He was at that event where we met Jordan many years ago, and everything else. And what I like is he said something, he's passionate about the space, his versatile, multi-sided business model. He said those things. But this is, I think, the most important thing to me, because we can look at what the future might hold and everything. But I think the pendulum is swinging to the independents hardcore right now. And I think this is the thing that is interesting. We talk crowdfunding, and people might have learned about crowdfunding over the years, right? But this I think is the biggest part of when I saw Mike post this, I thought, holy shit, that's it, right? The size of his addressable market is truly amazing and much larger than you might think, because it's very easy to look at this and go, ooh, comic books, ooh, independent people. Of course, they're going to do crowdfunding, raise money, help people. Awesome. It's going to be great. But
scroll up, scroll down just a little bit. Scroll down a little bit. Keep going. Stop. Click read more. That's what the market opportunity is. That's I think global collectibles market. Yeah,
but I think that's where it's interesting. This is freaking huge, right? Like this means you're building a business for a big market, right? And I think we should have you back and think about this and have a more philosophical, beyond the random tangents that I've already gone on with you, but I think that when you talk about what we just talked about, the way digital was distributed, the music total addressable market today, in the way that it's done, is like orders of magnitude larger than anyone would have put on their slide deck 20 years ago. There's a cool deck that's been shared around, like one of Uber's first decks. And they were like, if we just get 10% of the taxi market, we'll be this size company. Now the independent ride sharing kind of community is a market that's like 20 times bigger than taxis ever were, right? So
It's crazy,
I think
yeah.
that's how we have to think about this, because you can talk about collectibles, but is when we just talked about music, is a band's CD limited edition something considered a collectible? I'm not sure it's considered a collectible in the total addressable collectible market. That's a entertainment expense, right?
Yeah,
And
it's yeah.
right. So all of a sudden, all these things that aren't collectibles fit into your model, and you guys are going to expand beyond the initial crowdfunding. And you have a lot of
Yeah, I would love to come back and get more nitty gritty in this, and maybe we could schedule another time. Because there is a lot more to discuss about the addressable market, and we didn't even discuss the creator economy as part of that over, the total addressable market and what we could do there. That's not considered collectibles, but that's considered merchandise and that creator economy side of things, as well as, there's so much more, but I appreciate you guys letting me on the show, and I will be back. We'll talk more. And so anybody watching, very much appreciate your support. Go check out republic.com/Zoop. Or our website is zoop.gg. Check out the campaigns we have live right now. Everywhere online, Zoop is at We Are Zoop. So it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at We Are Zoop. I'm at Jordan Plosky. And unfortunately, my time is up. I got to run, guys.
And so do I. I was going to give all of his plugs, but he just did it for us. So thank you, Jordan, for joining us. I'll see you guys all soon.
If you have an idea, take it over to Zoop. Yeah,
that's right. I was about to pitch you, but I figure I'll save that for a private one. I was talking to my kids on the way to school today about Zoop, and I've got an idea for something. So we're gonna do something with our show before the holidays, something maybe for charity. We'll use Zoop. Will help us with the distribution and all this stuff, and we'll probably do it on Zoop. I've got some ideas, but hey, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you all soon. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good day.